We're now just 90 days away from the World Cup kicking off, and we are going to dive into one of the powerhouses of African football, Senegal. Known as the Lions of Teranga, they started playing as an independent nation back in 1961. It took them 40 years to make their first appearance at a World Cup. That was back in 2002, managing to upset defending world champions France on their way to the quarter-finals, becoming the second team from Africa to do so. 20 years later in Qatar, they made it to the round of 16, even without main man Sadio Mane, who missed out due to injury. Now they're defending African Cup of Nations champions, of course, after beating host nation Morocco in the final earlier on this year in a match that was engulfed in controversy. While the final team of their World Cup group isn't yet confirmed, they do know that for the second time they will face the country they were once a colony of to kick off their campaign. So let's have a quick look at the group that they're in for the World Cup this summer. They've got France, who are currently third in the latest FIFA rankings. They're currently 12th. Norway after that in 32nd. And then it will be Bolivia, Suriname or Iraq who will be that fourth spot for them to face in the group. For more on Senegal, let's chat to our African football correspondent Mbizo Mzamane. Mbizo, great to see you. We spoke just there about the legendary 2002 side. Can you tell us a bit more about what that golden generation did for Senegal on the world stage?
Yeah, I mean, that generation is iconic to all of us African football fans. And what it really did, long story short, is catapult Senegal not only into world football as a known country, a well-known country, but it also, I think, brought to bear their golden generation. I think that that generation really kick-started the Senegal that we see today, that is considered year in, year out an African powerhouse, who've gone on to demonstrate that they're an African powerhouse by winning the AFCON 2 times since. You know, many of these players have become coaches themselves and have led Senegal to glory. So this is an incredible generation which really brought to bear an incredibly talented Senegal team and a country who have constantly produced players but have never really been able to get over the hurdles and be considered a main contender on the African continent and a giant on the continent. And so this generation definitely did that.
Mbizo, they play France in East Rutherford, New Jersey in the opening game, which is an absolute banger to look forward to. That's exactly where the World Cup final will take place. Now, I went to have a look at the bookmakers, which I tend to do, plus 10,000 for Senegal to win the World Cup. Now, wouldn't this be fabulous for that nation? But wouldn't it be fabulous for the continent if an African side did win the World Cup? I want you to tell me why Senegal could not win the World Cup. Because everything I see from attack, midfield, defence, goalkeeper and coaching, they check all the boxes to me. So they should have a chance, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the first and foremost is clearly that the World Cup is not the easiest competition to win, no matter how quality you are, isn't it? And when you look at the kind of opposition that they have, just in their group alone, when you look at obviously France, who for me is probably the single favorite for this competition, it's obviously not going to be an easy road. They have everything it takes, as you said so. But again, you know, lack of experience, and sometimes when you haven't won or you haven't gone the distance far enough to be close to winning a competition, sometimes you don't quite know how to get there. That's why teams like Italy, teams like Germany, even when they're not at their best, you always bank on them getting further in the competitions because they have a certain experience. They have a certain knack for winning these competitions. I think Argentina is similar, and Senegal perhaps lack that. But they are now champions of Africa twice. They're reigning champions now, obviously under some incredible circumstances. But maybe, just maybe, they can get over that hurdle. And again, those odds were probably just as crazy for them to beat France in their opening, the former world champions at the time in 2002, and they cleaned them out, didn't they?
Let's compare or talk about the man in charge, the manager Pap Chow, how he's getting on compared to what we've seen with Aliou Cisse. Was the man he took over, wasn't he, in the dugout? What are the feelings about him going into such a big competition?
Well, I mean, certainly there was a little bit of, he's an unknown entity when he was coming in on a global stage. But he was well known in Senegal, having won the Chan competition, which is a completely domestic players, and then having moved through the ranks, similarly to Aliou Cisse. And there's obviously great excitement about what he's capable of, especially having won the AFCON in his first major competition with the A team, the senior team. So, again, his attacking stats are a little bit different. He seems to be more attacking than Aliou Cisse, so that's putting some wind in African football fans' sails, believing that he will go at opposition a little bit more as opposed to absorbing pressure only and cashing on the break. Senegal has been dominating possession in ways that I think they were capable of before, but didn't always do. And so I think there's a lot of expectation on his shoulders. I mean, for me personally, I expect him to come second in that group. I know that Norway is a good team, and obviously with some incredible players. The Haaland in particular is a bit frightening, I must be frank. But I think that the African champions are good enough to make a run. And even if they do lose to a France, for example, I think everyone on the continent, Senegalese or not, is expecting them to play well and to challenge the best in the world.
I agree with you. I think they can finish second in the group, and certainly with the quality they've got, I still think they can spring a surprise in that first match. Let's not forget, it might just be a blessing in disguise that you're playing France on match day 1. So there's a real opportunity for them to catch everyone off guard, including France. Now, obviously, in African football, there's good, there's bad, and there's also ugly. It can happen with associations, with organisations. But when I look at the results for Senegal, it's been truly remarkable. I mean, they haven't lost a competitive game for years. They've lost friendly games, yes, the most recent one was against Brazil. And of course, they have lost a couple of smaller friendly games. But the last competitive game was years ago. So what has the federation done better than other federations in African football that's gave them the platform to be able to perform consistently and get results like they are?
I think one of the things comes from a fundamentally intangible place, from the Senegalese soul, which is that they genuinely have faith in Senegalese football. They genuinely have faith in their ability to produce some of the best players on the continent and some of the best players in the world. And I think that is exemplified by their faith in Senegalese coaches taking over the team, and coaches who come through the ranks. You have to prove yourself. You coach the U23, you coach the B team, you coach Chan, and you prove that you are capable of taking over the senior team. They don't just go and get anyone. They get somebody who's familiar with the culture, who's familiar with the players. Another thing that the Senegalese Federation does in an incredible fashion is track players. They track players that are domestic and have gone abroad. They also track players who are foreign born. And so they are able to get this wonderful blend of diasporan players and local players, but all of whom have a mentality of serving Senegalese football as opposed to self-serving purposes, which I think is another component of genuine Senegalese culture. And I think that is one of the reasons that they become such a great favorite on the continent, not just because of the quality of the football, but what they represent, which is genuine faith in African ability. And again, just putting our best foot forward whenever we can, not just on the football field, but in the backroom staff, in every facet of football. And I think that's why they're, for me, ambassadors of the African game.
And Mbizo, is there a sense as well that this is a really important World Cup because there is that kind of changing of the guard? You've got the golden generation. Sadio Mane is obviously one of them, but you can also look at players like Idrissa Gueye, some of the other big names that they've got in there that are then obviously, this is probably going to be their last World Cup, moving on and retiring after that this is the time for them to make the most of some of those big name players.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that there's an element of that. Surely those players themselves will feel like, look, guys, one more chance. Let's get as far as we can go. We've been playing against the best in the world week in, week out in Europe. We know how to do this. We know how to win. We've proved it on the African continent, and we can take that success elsewhere, certainly. And these players are all leaders, these players that you've mentioned, Kalidou, Sadio, Gueye. These are players who aren't just there as figureheads. They really deliver on the football pitch. They deliver in the locker room. They deliver in the sociopolitics off of it. I mean, they're incredible leaders. And so I think right now there's this really good blend, as you said, of these young up-and-coming players, but also this old guard who's still very capable and can lead these young players forward. And it seems like it'll be a super smooth transition. I mean, I expect them to take this World Cup seriously, but I also don't believe it'll be a train smash if they don't do well, because again, I think what Senegal certainly has proved is that they do have a long-term vision. So failure now is simply an opportunity to improve and to be a greater force in the future, which I have no doubt that they will be.
Well, I'll tell you something special. Africa always has my heart, going all the way back to 1990. Roger Milla dancing around that corner flag, that will live in my memory forever. And African football deserves a champion. The steps and strides that they have made over generations has been truly remarkable. And you're about to see a World Cup being held in Morocco. Of course, it's going to be something to look forward to. But is this going to be the first African nation we can see win that World Cup? Will it be Senegal?
I can see it. If there's going to be a team to do it, I think this is probably the team that's been best situated since I've been watching World Cup with my own two eyes to get as far as that, to get to the final and to potentially be victorious. It'll take great focus. It'll take great courage. And I think one thing African teams need to drop is perhaps the little bit of fear or inferiority complex of, oh, we're facing big teams like France and like England and Germany, which can often creep into even the most talented of African teams. But I think Senegal is immune from that, and I think they are the ones who could potentially be crowned the first African World Cup champions.